Welcome to Pop Chat. My name is Annette Tarpley. I am the host and the founder of The Passion of Poetry, and glad to be presenting part 2 of our poetry and our writing and responsibility that lies therein when we write. So I'm happy to have with us this wonderful panel of people, and that is Richard Spisak, Rawle I am James, Genevieve Ray, Brian Donald James, and we have also Henry Jones that is having issues. So we're going to wait for him to come back. Let me see if. So anyway, we're waiting for Henry to come back, and but we'll go ahead and get started. So we started this. I think was it a little over? Was it a week ago, or was it a little over? Was it last week?
Mm-hmm.
And Rawle said, "I think we're done with this discussion," and he was right that we weren't. So we're gonna continue the discussion, and we are going to we added actually Henry, who's having some technical difficulties as part of the panel, but very glad to see you all again. Hi, y'all. Hey.
Hey.
Yeah. I told them all to come with glasses because I was having a problem earlier with my eyes, but it kind of, there you go. So for 2 seconds, you'll be able to see my cool Amelia Earhart kind of look.
Well, Richard, Brian, and I are waiting for our lenses pigmentation to catch up. So.
Okay. So you do have the pigmentation. How about you, Rick? Do yours turn colors?
Back in ancient days, I wore purple glasses for quite some time, and I wore yellow glasses for some time. Interesting look. The yellow is used for snow blindness from time to time, but I like purple. My nickname during the psychedelic era was Peter Purple. So,
were you a hippie, Richard?
Oh well, yeah. I used to. Well, I've been committing poetry for a long time.
How about now, Brian, who's muted himself? I don't think you probably had any hippie days, did you?
I used to rock some tie-dye t-shirts and jeans, back in the day. I wouldn't.
Rawle, you look like you could have had just a tinge of it. How about you?
Oh yeah, I had the tie-dye, I had the flowery multicolored shirts of the hippie days. So I mean, I was a child in the 60s, but, as most children, your parents dress you accordingly. So, yeah.
Right. How about Genevieve? You're a millennial.
I am indeed, yes. So I won't say what I usually say because I've said it once at one of my events when I did it with Rawle, and I was expecting him to like kick me out of the group. Let's just say made in the very late 80s. So unfortunately, I missed all of that. But yeah, I mean the 90s had a bit of a revival of it, but absolutely long term, and particularly now because I'm vegan, granola girl. Probably needed a bit more granola, bearing in mind in sizing, but yeah, I've always thought that my hippie uncles and of both sides of my heritage and all that were exceedingly cool human beings. So hey.
So Henry,
I think the 90s did try the hippie thing again, but they got lazy.
Yes, I utterly agree with you.
They got lazy.
Yes, they did. Yeah, I totally agree. Couldn't agree more.
Henry, can you talk? Can we hear you?
Yeah, his video looks really slow.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you switched over to your phone or if you can do that, Henry, but that seems to be the fix for a couple of other times that I've been on here. So we'll keep Henry there in whatever state he's in currently. So this all came about actually as the brainchild of Genevieve Ray, who suggested this topic. Yes, poetry or writing. Do we have responsibility? And Genevieve, do you want to kick this off? I'm going to give the stage to you, and you can tell us about your brainchild, actually. All right.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's I do home at the same time. What's the plan?
You were kind of crackly there, Genevieve.
Oh, sorry. Is that a bit better?
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go. Hey, because I remembered from last time. I was going to say, do you want me to hit the associated poem at the same time, or merely to? Yeah, okay. Well, cool. We'll do that because Annette knows because we talked about it. So yeah, for the audience, hi everybody again. This is round 2. Cage match. We were challenged by Annette, and I loved it when she suggested it. She was like, right, this time around, bring debatable poems, which for me is bring spicy. We've been lemon and herb. We've been garlic flavored. The cayenne is coming out, my friends. The spice, the discussion, everything else. Just to introduce anyone who wasn't here for last time round, the whole brainchild of this really kind of came from the fact that I had noticed 2 quite large political events in the Western Hemisphere. At least there's been many on the other side as well, where it was like, well, it's discussion decisiveness. But I've been thinking about it for a long time, just generally as a creative. Today, my dearest best friend who's watching live right now, through my phone as it happens, we're both quite socially aware people. We've worked together and actually we directed my play together. And we've been talking today about like where the support for society and community and stuff is in the arts. If you're hiring, bear in mind. And those kind of things. And just like, what is the responsibility, bearing in mind it's such a personal art when it comes to poetry? Is there responsibility? What can that responsibility be? Where are the stop points and stuff like that? And it's an interesting point because, yes, you can sit there lonely as a cloud staring into the sky. Wordsworth, who also wrote that, also wrote a lot of poetry about the French Revolution because he was there at the time. Can we switch? There's a lot of things. It's a very complex subject, so much so we had to come back for more. So, our dear panel, Annette is our host. And the rest of the panel were gentlemen. So, for the Midnight Society, I figured my first discussion piece might be relevant to the split and change, and also being a woman within a certain age range, something that I've been bearing in mind. So if I can just get up a second, I shall read my poem, Body, Mine, Autonomy. Am I coming through clearly, by the way, Houston? Everything all good?
Yeah.
Audio fine? Let's go. I am subject, matter of debate. Nations bury flagstaffs into my intestines, creating manifest destinies out of one part of my apparatus. That one that rarely feels mine, unless doubled like a deck chair once a month when moons wane. I am subject to philosophies held by old philosophers who never held women in compassion and nor esteem, unlinked to the backache ventured forth of red tulip petals, the heft of mountains I seem to have manifested. I am subject to the material expectations to be both mother and baby. Oh, baby, baby, baby. Responsible in one moment and then so incapable in the second. Blessed by some forsworn promise made by others that makes me heretic for keeping my hard-working earnings just for myself. I am subject to the silly sentiment that I would hunger for stability when I have built universities that others have attended. Instead of looking for beauty, charm, elegance, demure and delicacy for my future partner, be the male, female, or whatever else. I am subject by no chosen praxis, partner, colleague, or even fetish, by no scope of my own, but rather very high puppet strings of the most powerful beings who seem very, very subjective in their choices. Well, why I'm doing this cage match is I quite enjoy objections. A bit more than just a pretty case study, I would say. Wouldn't you? Come with me, gentlemen.
Oh my goodness. So that was wonderful. Loved it. Loved it. Any comments on her little rendition there? No. Look at you've dumbfounded them. They don't even. They can't even
I think
talk.
they're raring to go. I'm going to make sure I'm.
The wit is always admirable.
I just love to hear a woman receiving the power of herself and then putting that out into the universe, the self-love of it. I really enjoy hearing that. I always enjoy hearing a woman stand up for herself.
Thank you for that, Rawle.
Yeah, I share that sentiment as well. You know, because you're speaking of yourself, of maybe your awakening, the things that not necessarily challenge you, but you may want to challenge, right? So, you know, it's a good piece, and if you're tying it into the topic, you know, what is your responsibility as a poet that put that out, knowing that some ears may not receive it with the intent that you put it out with? Is that truly your responsibility, right? Or is your responsibility to yourself and to speak your truth to the best of your ability, respectfully as possible, right? So yeah, it was a very good piece. There's a good opening, because, you know, it you know, it just falls into my belief. Any, you know, poetry, or like a lot of things, you know, is open to the interpretation of the individual, particularly when it's a subjective thing. And that poem is subjective because, you know, it's not a defined meaning of anything other than a woman's thoughts, her perception of how she sees life, her worldview, things that she holds within that may challenge her, that challenges the norm, whatever it is. So, you know, I think it's upon the poet to be responsible to their truth and to be able to speak it. Well, first of all, be able to write it, to have the thought to write, and then to speak it as respectfully as possible. And respectfully does not mean not calling people on their stuff, or calling things, or calling life as you want to see it, whatever. So yeah, it's a good start.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Thanks so much. Can I, if it's okay, Annette, to say one, just see the quick thing, which is the truth. This was inspired by your full review. There's little bits of each of you in it. There's Rick's sense of humour. Unfortunately, I can't rhyme as well as he can. I apologise. Rawle, right at the centre, I am human first, but so much rhetoric, especially a woman of childbearing age, is based on what service I can sometimes provide. So I brought it right back to being a human being, which is you. And Brian, literally the whole factor of adherence to the spirit first, and then Annette's beauty with metaphor. So it's also a little ode to all of you.
Oh, thank you. We are honored.
Blessings, yes.
We are honored. So, Henry, you're still in the same mode. I don't know if you're trying to enter on your phone, but I would really suggest you try to enter on your phone, because I think you'll find that we might be able to see you right now. You're just still and we can't see you. But so what I'm going to do, actually, Rawle, would you like to take over? I don't know if you have a piece, or if you would like to make any comments on our responsibility and that subject matter, but I'll give the stage to you.
I have a piece that I can share, but also, you know, I'll talk a little bit. I think last week when we started diving into this topic, I brought up the point because, you know, poets, there's a bit of a battle cry that, you know, poets change society, and, you know, our words can have an effect on society, which is true. But then you can also look at the other side. Well, in what way can poets influence society? What access to power do they have? And blah, blah, blah. There's many avenues you can go down. But I touched on the thought of, in the advent of the days we live in with technology and social media, that poets now have these platforms that have been created, that they've created and supported by others. Individual platforms, collective platforms, as far as groups. And if that's the case, and we are putting things out that potentially can have influence over people, then are we to some degree to be considered part of the media, at least the social media component, not necessarily traditional media? And if that's the case, what is our responsibility to that? Is it the same responsibility we have as an individual? Because, I'm really only responsible for me and my thoughts and what I put out. How I put it out, that's up to me. If you're, I believe, a conscious human, you whatever you put out into the world will, to the best of your ability, reflect that. So I think it's a greater conversation that I would love to see us continue having in this. What is our responsibility, if we are to be considered part of the social media fabric? And in light of what's happened over the last week or so politically, and what's been the fallout from it, I wrote a piece, I think a couple of months ago, that may be applicable to it. It's called Blurred Lines of Red and Blue. In a time when up is upside down, common sense dulled by the airwaves into a repeated April Fool's sunset. From sea to shining sea, the American dream is now trending as night terrors. The continental divide grows as partisans dig in their heels, believing history is on their side. Democracy under threat, as the republic seems to be flying blind, while the Constitution cries tears of shame. Checks and balances ignored to make the home of the brave secure at the cost of the land of the free. Decorum lost in a sea of confusion as the people are bamboozled by the shadows lost in the memory of the founder's vision. A nation baptized by the blood of the fallen. No redemption for the sins of the past, while Gold Star families mourn their heroes. Oh, beautiful in troubled minds, waving stars and stripes of old glory, for God's done shed his grace on thee. For the chickens have come home to roost, to feed on amber waves of grain, lost souls in spacious blood orange skies, blurred lines of red and blue drawn, neighbors divided by propaganda's conflict, while white headstones bleed red. Voices echo lest we forget, for there is nothing civil in the horrors of war, in this red, white, and blue hemorrhaging dream. End of piece.
Beautiful, beautiful. Wow, it's a strong piece, Rawle. You said a lot in there. Does anybody want to comment on that piece?
Absolutely. Rawle's eloquence raises important issues about, I'm going to say, the misuse of rhetoric, and also I think calls upon us to give space for our higher angels. Passion is easy. Passion is stirred, can be very dangerous. But at the same time, I think, he points to the fact that a poet's language, the uses of rhetoric, the uses of strong, effective language has an important place.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Henry, welcome back. You're in the same. Can you talk, Henry? Say something. Because I did see you move for a minute there. So not sure what's happening. Brian, do you have anything to say by chance?
Absolutely. And as usual, as I'm getting to know brother Rawle more and more, two things always pop out: extreme eloquence, uh, and extreme intelligence. You know, but it's not so far, uh, uh, so greatly worded that the common man can grasp it. And yet, an intellectual can also, just definitely get something from it and dissect it. So, um, again, just extremely intelligent and extremely eloquent in his writing.
Always, always. He definitely emits all of that. So, Miss Genevieve, do you have anything to say?
Oh yeah, it's one of them statue poems. Hey, one of those you grave into the side of a statue for people to look towards. The true gravitas, both in your writing ability, but also your voice, sir. Literally, you couldn't see your screen, just go, ooh, hey, the clicks are there, the clicks are there. I think it underpins something really powerful about when we don't choose our intentionality in both the use of language, but also how we ensure that the views we have, we've considered, the harm can turn a lush forest of social development into a dust bowl. And almost, I don't know if it was because my mind was on picking all the words. I wish I was lantern carrier at times. That's a lantern carrier thing. You know what I mean? It'd be like, like there's a line there. It's like I just this feel of like the raw consonants that you use. Thank you, dear Merv C, right, for all the things you've taught me. Like it's got such grit and strength, and you can feel the desolation build of if we don't. So. One of them statue poems, sir. One of them statue poems. Well done.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Anyone else? Richard, did you already go? I can't remember.
Yep.
I think you did. I'm sorry. I was in my trying to find something myself to present eventually. Brian, do you let me see. Somebody says this. Scott says, "Hey, Rawle." So Scott Young.
Hey, Scott.
And then he says, if you feel the need to call yourself a poet, your main responsibility is to cut out the BS and write honestly. Strive hard to find original voice. The world doesn't need more bullshit poetry. I write a lot of bullshit poetry, Scott. So just saying. So the world has no need of mine, I guess. But I'm going to go to Brian. If you want to unmute yourself and present a piece that we can discuss. Responsibility is for accountants. All right, Scott, thank you for your input.
Let's close the stream. That's too good. Done.
Yeah.
Well, I'm an auditor by trade, so I really enjoyed that. Well, basically, I think that to touch upon what I said last time about listening to that inner voice within us and using poetry to record the past, present, and projected future, and doing it in a way that we can make it as honest and as beautiful, as we can. For me, poetry is to connect those who feel that they don't have a voice and let them know that, there is a way to ease anxiety, and there are others that, feel the same way that you do, to combat depression and things of that nature. So the first piece I like to lead with is a piece spoken from the voice of a child and someone who wanted to defend the child, which is myself. So I'll go right into the piece. It's called Guardian, very short. Cover thy breast to protect your heart. Cover thy legs to protect your modesty. These are things told to little girls, the butterflies scared to leave their husk, for buds upon their chests bring unwanted attention from boys and men lurking to spoil from abroad and from within, to shudder with the turn of a doorknob, to shake under covers pulled tightly. It is ungodly for a child not to feel safe in a home space, to brace for the unwanted kiss, to brace for the clenched fist. These are things learnt by little girls, and this trauma can journey into womanhood. So you draw back your hand when I extend mine. It is a hurting thing not to be trusted. I love you. I love you. I swear. Let me be your guardian. I love you. I love you. I swear. In peace.
Mm.
Thank you.
Beautiful. I forgot to give the stage to you. I apologize for that, but hopefully everybody's attentions were focused on you. Does anybody want to comment on Brian's?
I'll jump in. I'll just say ditto. You know, that the eloquence that you write with. I think that's the first piece I've heard you recite. But from the conversation we've had, and like I said, you know, I ditto your sentiments of getting to know you. The eloquence and the intelligence in a subject that can be very touchy for many, right? Not just the physical act of abuse. For me, it's more the message of seeing our precious children, particularly these little girls, as prey that someone would want to look at them as to look at them in a way that an adult would look at an adult. When childhood should be innocence, in the sense of innocence of allowing to be a child and feel free and safe to explore, and feel free and safe to sleep in your own home with those that say they love you. Because as we know, most abuse tends to happen at the hands of those that we know. So, yeah, so that, I think that was a very powerful way of capturing that energy, of capturing a slight that is still very much upon our society. It's still very much in our humanity and in some people. So I really enjoyed that piece because it didn't just highlight an issue, but I also felt the power from it with regards to the power that these little girls can grow up. Yeah, they will grow up with trauma, but they can also grow up with the power, because along with that potential abuse or the abuse of some, there are many hands, like you said, I love you. I love you. There are many hands that do love, that can help them to walk through that trauma, to unfold that power from that experience. So that was a brilliant piece. Well done. Well written.
Thank you.
And a great message. Great message.
Anybody else want to comment?
I was going to say, Rick, do you want to take the honors and I'll jump after?
Okay. I was just going to say, you know, it touches in its own way on so many different issues. The defense of the innocent first, a respect for women second, respect for children and young females, young women is so paramount, so important. And, you know, we see today, some people seem to fail to have any appreciation for half the planet's women. You know, I mean, it beggars the imagination that we've been a society for, you know, let's say 10,000 years rounding it up, and we still have problems appreciating half of humanity. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? And it's such a special crime to not just not appreciate women, but to take advantage of innocence. And that's a very, very sad truth. Very sad truth. An honorable poem and an important message. Thank you.
Very good.
Rick,
I'm sorry, Genevieve.
I was going to say, because I can see Henry trying again, so I was just going to hold fire for like a second there. But shall I continue or should I wait for a minute, Annette?
No,
No,
I
don't.
think he's spinning. He's really having difficulties.
Yeah, I'm asking him again to use his phone. I don't think he's trying to do that, but I'm going to remove him from this part. So we're not still having problems. Genevieve, did you want to continue?
Yeah. Interesting observation for all of us when we watch this back, because we were able to see on camera is Rick and I both had our hands like this, clutching our little hearts. It's a perfect thing. Let's just say you touched upon a history for me, good sir. So the first thing I must say is thank you. From one who unfortunately knows, thank you. It's so important. This is part of the responsibility. Point I was making is when we choose to take that responsibility, even when we are accountants. Sorry, I want to make you laugh, Brian. We can help heal the spirit, the soul, whatever you want. But if we're mindful, what struck me so much was how it was practically a lullaby. And with your softness protecting the character in the story, in your vocal tone, you can feel almost getting her to have the rest she never really gets. And the point of contention isn't, so far we've all been very nice to each other in this cage fight. There's no blood spill anywhere, to be honest, but we've had no debate. But one of the things that does draw me as well is by taking the choice to be responsible.
Yeah.
You might actually help somebody. And someone who's very much healed and fine and flourishing, may I say. Thank you for all. Thanks, Rick. Thank you for all those who are on the journey. This is just the kind of poetry they need, and this is why being mindful, in my view, of this debate is so important, because you might just help someone and you wouldn't even know. So, thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Rick, do you have anything for us?
I do. First and foremost, I have to say, responsibility is a funny word. They use us. We poets are employed by society, by civilization. The oldest tales we know are told by poets. Poets, the traveling bard is such an important metaphor. The storyteller who goes from town to town to keep people informed, to make people be aware of important issues. We're going to do that. They use poetry to chant at football games. They use poetry in battle. Poetry has power. So the question is, are we going to use it responsibly? Are we going to take it in our hands to do important work with it? And, we have a peculiar problem right now with all the media. We have this, well, it used to be called a fire hose of information coming at us. So the thing is, I think poets can focus in on important things that people should know. So we have that place of the traveling bard. So I have a couple of pieces I would love to share with you. One is making a political case that says, you know what, we have partisanship, but there's a place where we come together. That's one I would love to read, but I want to read something else first. This is the other part of that. This is the one that says there's an important story you may have missed. And this is one of those stories. This is called Oklahoma Lost a Teacher. Oklahoma lost a teacher. It wasn't quite sane, and I'm sure it wasn't prudent, and it wasn't good for their brains. The tiniest minds had made up a law. You see, if you look close, it did have the tiniest flaw. What could they do, turning from education to lies? They definitely weren't smart, and they certainly weren't wise. They would not see what they could not see, no more than they could take a quick stroll across the roiling, boiling Zuyder Zee. They preferred the world of fit in a cup, and it wasn't going to do it well. That's it. What's up? They liked their fairy tales. That much is true. But sadly, madly, they wanted them for me, and they insisted for you, too. And the world wouldn't fit in their tiny old box. They'd rather just pout, take off their shoes, and darn it, walk barefoot on rocks. It didn't matter to them if they banged their toes on simple facts that everyone knows. They wanted to outlaw that kind of fact. They insisted reality stopped right there in its track. From all the big world, they just wanted to hide. And it didn't matter to them that reality didn't coincide. They wanted their facts, and they wanted them now. They didn't like reality. They'd rather not have it. No way, no how. Well, one little teacher stood up to the mob. She actually wanted to teach, though, even if it cost her her job. To show her students what the law had done, she blocked off the library books with red tape. Each volume, every single one, she roped off the library right there in their face. She showed them how stupid, how totally and utterly bereft of grace. When laws are quite stupid, it just makes no sense. So out of place, you can't hide from the world, not from reality's face.
Great. Love that. So, bravo. Comments on Rick's poem?
I love the use of the analogy or the metaphor of simple minds, because that's a piece for me when I hear it. It doesn't matter who's in power. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you call yourself from a political standpoint. But whoever's in power does stupid things, small minds, simple minds. I don't know if it always reflects what the so-called society wants, always, or if it does at all. But I think when you hear a piece like that, for me, it's about stripping away what you think you believe in, listening to what the message is. What is really the message? Is the message about suppression? Is the message about trying to instill a way or policies that fit your mindset? Or are you looking to find a balance, because it's not just about you, it's about the others that live as well. It's the same with education. Education, I believe, has to take that into account, because you're not just educating one. And it kind of ties back into the conversation about responsibility. So if the poet, there's a responsibility for the poet, because I agree with Richard, poetry is in song, is in music, it's in everything, and it's an old tradition. Poetry has become, maybe since the Romantic age or the Enlightened age, kind of moved into the ivory towers, but poetry actually belonged on the ground. It always belonged to the people. So if that's the case, then what is the responsibility of the people when they hear a piece like that? Because a piece like that, I can see triggering people in many ways. And triggering them in a way where they may not truly understand the message, because the message that I heard from that is not whether you're red or blue, conservative or a liberal or Republican or Democrat, is small minds. And small minds come on both sides of any aisle. So I thought that was brilliant. And once again, your use of humor to not soften, but to highlight the absurdity of some things, I just think is brilliant. It's constant in all your poetry. Yeah. And I've said that to you many times. And there's a lot of poems of yours I like. Well, all your poems I like. I don't always agree with the topics, but I love the poetry, because I love how you use poetry to highlight the absurdity of the ridiculousness that sometimes our humanity goes through. Going back to your point earlier, it's like, you mean after all these eons on this planet, we haven't figured out how to fully embrace the other side of humanity. Like, really? The same thing could be said in that piece. That's brilliant. Of course, brilliant.
Indeed. Thank you for that. Anyone else want to comment? Brian?
Yes. What I'm learning from Brother Rick, two things. It's like with Brother Rawle. The two things that pop out with your work is the wit, and I used to be a former rapper, so you really almost, you slowed that down a little bit. You might have a hit there, and then visuals. I'm a Southern man. I like things simple and things of that nature, and I like to see pictures in my mind when someone reads. And you definitely do that. I mean, I could see everything that you were referring to. So, yeah, those would be my thoughts.
Thank you.
Genevieve, did you have something to say, darling?
it's so hard because we're all kind of covered so many points. You can probably see the emphatic look in my face, just like, well, that's my points covered. I'll just go and sleep over here in the other half of the room. Like legit, I always think of you, Rick, as like a newscaster to the universe sometimes, and particularly because I've had the joy of being able to listen to some of your radio work as well. It all kind of comes through, and it's like I always feel like you've got your little talk radio in your truck, sending it out on your pirate radio side, and this kind of felt like that. But there was also a softness in the humor as well. A gentle reminder, and it is that small minds effect. Sorry, well, I'm going to just straight out quote you. Kind of thing really underpinned the effect of it, because we are always consuming material one way or another and stimuli. However, it can be utilized so easily, and yeah, going all the way back to the griots and the cross culture of being like the telecommunicators of a lot of different messaging. And if we didn't have poetry, we would lose a lot of our history, particularly oral histories, for some cultures that did not use written storytelling as their way of doing things. So it feels somewhat a callback to that, but also a very vast reminder. And I want to ask, how long ago did you write that piece, Rick?
I'm sorry, dear, I didn't hear you.
How long ago did you write that piece? Like, how old is that as a piece?
About a week.
That's fair. So it's because it felt very considerably on topic, but it equally could have been a decade ago.
Sadly,
and that's the scary power of it. So yeah, I'll always be making sure to tune my radio effectively, Mr. Rick, so I don't miss you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Very good. Very good. Great comments. I'm going to share one I wrote a very, very long time ago, and when I first started coming back into poetry. So it's early, Annette. I haven't read this for a while, so it might be pretty bad. But it talks about, it's a walk a day in my shoes. Walk a day in my shoes, says the woman who is childless. The gift from your womb is so very precious. Walk a day in my shoes, says the person who is handicapped. Blessed with good health, you have no afflictions at what people laugh at. Walk a day in my shoes, says a person of color. Can't you see the red in my blood? You are my sister, you are my brother. Walk a day in my shoes, says the person who is homeless. You are only a paycheck away from sharing a life that is hopeless. Walk a day in my shoes, says an innocent man in prison living within a cell. You'll never know the constraints of isolation, this loneliness, my personal hell. Walk a day in my shoes, says a woman who has been abused. You know nothing of my life, for I have been ridiculed, beaten, and bruised. Walk a day in my shoes, says a person suffering from depression. The heartache and loneliness I feel leads me into my oppression. Walk a day in my shoes, says a laborer with a menial task. I watch the upperclassmen walk by me. No acknowledgement of me will he ask. Walk a day in my shoes, says a person riddled with addiction. Those who've never suffered from this bondage know nothing of my affliction. Walk a day in my shoes, says a veteran that witnessed the demise of his fellow soldier. The daily flashbacks I have changed my life, made me older. Walk a day in my shoes, says a person suffering from hunger. Those hoarders of food, I find their greed rather vulgar. Walk a day in my shoes, says a blind man without sight. You know nothing, not what you miss out on, for I live in darkness, not the light. Walk a day in my shoes, says a child who witnesses abuse. I feel helpless and alone. I can't stop it. I'm a child. It's no use. Walk a day in my shoes, says the person unable to hear. I can't hear the sound of laughter and music, nor the footsteps as someone draws near. Walk a day in my shoes, for I am one who knows not of love, but instead know hate. It is me who suffers most, for joy I will never find. My personal hell is my fate. End of piece.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to go for any comments. I'm not looking for critique. I'm just moving on. No.
No, you don't get that easy. No. Nice try.
No.
Nice try.
Nice try. I think Brian had his hand up.
Go on, Brian.
Brian, go.
Okay, so yeah, you don't get off that easy. That's a good one, Rob. That's a good one. Well, I think this sticks to the subject matter, and I think this is the reason for to me, the reason for this panel today. What is the voice? The responsibility of the writer. I think that we all found ourselves in the lines of that poem somewhere, and so. If we felt that way, then all 28,000 members of POP, I'm sure they felt the same way. And so this is what our job is, to let people know that when they're in various states of depression, that there's always hope. There's always somebody who's been there before. And then you don't feel alone, and you will slowly start finding yourself getting better, inwardly. So thank you for sharing that piece. I think that is really what poetry is about.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That to me, the common humanity is what you're speaking about there. And no matter how isolated, no matter whatever your particular human instance is, there's people that have gone through the same thing. And there's that cry to say, let's not build walls, let's build the walls and bridges idea. We are the same. We are one. There's no real difference. And I have my issues. You have your issues. Everybody has their issues. Let's find that common humanity.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, do you want to go next, or shall I jump in?
You can go. Okay.
Proof of the thesis of all of this, which I think everyone's actually achieved in the first poems, really. By showing every version of subjective and reminding us this person and this person and this person are all human beings, you bring the objective round. If we don't tell their stories, if we don't get involved, if we don't see this perspective, if we don't have space for all of it, we miss the humanity and how very much we are alike. And we also lose the ability to do anything useful. Once again, that mindfulness, that matter. Oh, you are so hard on yourself, Annette, and we're not liking it. I think you should put those sunglasses back on and just lean back and be like, oh yeah, I hit the brief. Yes, she's going to do it. Woohoo! Yes!
There you go. I wear my sunglasses.
I wear my sunglasses.
It is yours. Yes.
The bad thing is this. I recently bought sunglasses. I have one that is not prescription, one that is. And I thought I grabbed the prescription, but I can't see a darn thing with them on. So I don't know what it is. So,
right. So I'm going to add my 2 cents because you're still not getting off the hook that easy. So
okay. I'm ready.
That to me, that was a piece about empathy. The invitation to walk in my shoe. Whether I was abused, neglected, ignored, viewed as untouchable, whatever it is. But also of the love and hope and dreams. Walk in my shoes. A poet's job is to speak their truth and to take the harshness of life and to put it in a creative flow that may abstract it enough that takes the bitterness of the reality out of it. It's the way Richard uses humor in his poetry.
Yeah.
To soften the blow enough that you could see it and not fear it, to understand it. To not have sympathy, but empathy. Right? And I think that's what that poem was. That's what I got from that, because that was a really powerful way, but yet very creative, in a very soft but yet challenging way to say, take a look. I am just like you. Would you like to know? Walk a moment with me. Walk a moment in my shoe. Just to get a sample. And I think if we can do that, we stand a chance of realizing we're all connected, and that the harshness, the good and the ugly of life, which is a part of life, we're not going to get rid of that. Unfortunately, there are just some people that just see things differently. But we have enough people that do, and even the people that do tend to still butt heads. But if we can be empathetic with each other, truly be empathetic with each other, we can continue to soften the blows of these harshness, where we can maybe truly come up with different ways, different solutions to help each other. Creative ways, and that's what poetry does, because if you can convey that message and that creativity or humor to soften it, we stand a chance of truly being empathetic with each other. So
Yeah.
that's what I got from that piece.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And look at Scott Young. Thank you. Good poem, Annette. No bullshit. So,
Well done, Scott. Well done. See, Scott's got humor too. I love it.
It does.
thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Yeah, sometimes I write non-bullshit stuff. Not very often. But I enjoy writing both. So, so anybody have any other strong pieces that they want to share that maybe you've written before?
I would love to share one that I try to bridge the political spectrum with this one. And it's a relatively short one, if I may.
You got the stage.
Thank you, my dear. This is called The Conservative and Liberal Mind. The divisions between what conservative and liberal find are only as wide as the narrowest mind, and never so deep to keep at bay the warrior's hand or the diplomat's play. They both, it seems, can hold quite dear a mother's love, a baby's tear, and yet differ so in the country's steer. They both cherish and hope and hold to the breast a youngster's hope and elder's rest, yet with party and polity so contest. The cherished dream, the path so grand, will part these friends, confound the trends that each would nurture shared goals, split ends. Each holds his party dear to the heart, and yet so seems to differ just in the art of who governs best would govern least, and nourish health and wealth concede. They both despair of the moderate stare, the great gray mumblings wander and seem not to care, unabashed, unaware. And while quite glorious and passionately we play our part, with our honor high and our rhetoric smart, jousting up another hill with a will, all toward the party's coffers thrilled, with pennies we'll build a wall apart, with a threadbare honor in the lawyer's art. Each with his plan, each with his hope, in party thick or misanthrope, mutters and marks the passing throng who seem not to notice, not to belong to the party, the team, the banner, the cause. No pledges they're signing, no pamphlets allure. Conservatives and liberals find they're only as divergent as the narrowest mind. They both cherish freedom, both really care. They just see a different road over there. One says laissez-faire, one says c'est la vie. A mere mortal matter of vowels, a portentous difference of cadence. They flail at ennui. Viva la difference, I'm wont to say. They've both been to barter for bread, same as me. One cherishes liberty, just like the other. Both warm to the fire and smile to the lover. While judges may judge and legislators wrangle, they both stroke their spaniel and brush their daughter's tangle. And what do I hope to contend with this verse? That neither are wiser, both heir to the curse of time weighing heavy. The slipping sand hardly stays, while we both light our candle and aim toward the day.
Yay. Good way to broach that subject. So, yes. Anybody want to comment on that?
Well, it's fitting of the times. It's almost a more detailed version of the one I read. You know, these battle lines that we've drawn, these perceptions, and yet there's another human on the other side, and we always forget that when if your side is in power, they end up doing the same thing the other side did, just in a different way. Because to Richard's point, we see things differently, and I don't know, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a fitting poem for the times. It's really fitting for the times.
I think so as well. Anyone else want to comment?
I'll make mine relatively short, but I think, as you said, fitting for the times and also fitting for future times, because this is such a difficult thing to consistently broach. There's a sort of soft hope and trust in it. It's as loud as the warning may be. It is also a quiet faith we can do better, which I was quite fond of. It's just like, no, we're not so damned, shall we say. There's some hope in this as well, but we do need to be thoughtful about it. So yeah, in some ways it just kind of made me smile quite loudly. And of course, your art for wordplay, sir. One of my favorite things. So I'll put that as my comment for now, but that's definitely what it made me do, smile.
Very good. Anyone else comment?
Back in my day when I was in the music business, we had it was an MC. His name was Slick Rick. That's what I'm gonna call you now. You Slick Rick, man. Again, just wit and visualization. Again, very clever wordplay, and like I said, I'm gonna call you Slick Rick now.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Slick Rick. Wow. And anyone else? Everybody done commenting? Does anybody else want to present?
You want to go, Jen?
I was going to say, well, the dear lady gave me a challenge before we started. I think I have some options, but it depends on what you want to go for. Do you want to have a villain song about standing by the sidelines, not the other one from the other one? It's a slightly older song, which I haven't done in so many years, so I'm a little bit rusty. Or do we want one which is now probably more of a problematic song, but I've always thought it was beautiful for being a protest for the earth? Which one are you feeling?
One or two?
Give me the last one.
Yeah, number two. Everybody wants two.
Okay, so a protest for the earth. So this song is it's from a problematic film, and there's actually a motion at the minute by a lot of creators to do a recut of Pocahontas by Indigenous people. And actually put her proper history into it. But I can't help it. I've always quite liked Colours of the Wind. And I think there's a lot to discuss about how much is this a thoughtfully written piece, and is there some challenges and some developments since it was done in the 90s. I might grab a little bit of water because it gets quite high in the middle. I'm going to do my best here, people. Okay. My friend is listening in the background, so I just heard myself go in the background. Okay. You think, is that coming through clearly before I go any further? Is that coming on? We good? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You think I'm an ignorant savage. You've been so many places. I guess it must be so. But still I cannot see if the savage one is me. How can there be so much that you don't know? You don't know. You think you own whatever land you land on. The earth is just a dead thing you can claim. But I know every rock and tree and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name. You think the only people who are people are the people who look and think like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you learn things you never knew, you never knew. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue corn moon? Or ask the grinning bobcat why he grins? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountains? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Can you paint all the colors of the wind? Come run the hidden pine trails of the forest. Come taste the sun-sweet berries of the earth. Come roll in all the riches all around you. And for once, never wonder what they were. The rainstorm and the river are my brothers. The heron and the otter are my friends. And we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends. Oh, the voice a bit like Screw Up. How high will the sycamore grow? If you cut it down, then you'll never know. And you'll never hear the wolf cry to the blue corn, for whether we are white or copper skinned, we need to sing. We need to sing to all the voices of the mountain. We need to paint for all the colors of the wind. You can own the earth and still all your own is until you can paint with all the colors of the wind.
We couldn't do it. We couldn't do it. You were doing it a cappella, so just saying. Thank you, Genevieve. That was beautiful.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Anybody have any comments?
I feel like I was on a Broadway production. I don't know. Shenandoah came to mind. This wide open stage and all the cast members, and you're standing there singing to the moon. And that song, Can You Hear the Wolf Cry? Well, I put the Can You Hear the Wolf? It just reminds me of an old Bruce Cockburn song. If a tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear?
Yeah.
The wolf cries in the forest. Does anyone hear? Nobody hears because you can't see the wolf crying, but yet the wolf cries because of our idiotic ways of life. That was the feel of that piece. Of this entity standing before that the moon has seen it all unfold, and wondering when is this species going to figure it out. So
very good,
very powerful piece. Well sung. I like the falsetto. I like it.
Yeah, you did great. I don't know how you do it a cappella anyway, so Anyone else want to comment before we move on?
So eloquent.
Rick?
I was just going to say, it was so beautiful, so eloquent, both fragile and bold at the same time. How absolutely exquisite. Just lovely, Genevieve. Thank you so much.
Brian?
Yes, thank you. I'm from the South. We don't use a lot of words. I'll just say lovely. It was
Maybe that's why people know I'm not from the South, because I use too many words.
Straight to the point. Lovely.
There's a few ways you could take that.
People say, "You're not from here, are you?" And it's like, no.
She's one of them Northerners. She's got all them words.
I know they call me a Northerner. I'm very, very, absolutely very offended. And so I always say, no, I'm from the Midwest. Apparently we have a little Northern type thing.
Well, I'll defend the North since I grew up in the Northeast in Brooklyn. So.
Yeah, exactly. I have a piece I wanted to play that Alan Johnson did for me. It's called The Fall of Man. It makes a little bit of movement. It's not very long. I think it's like a minute and some change. If you wouldn't mind if I present that. So let's, he does it much better than I do, so that's why I'm moving to Alan's version.
When leaves on trees start to change, and from timbered heights they fall, man wonders his change of season, whether tall or stature or small, thinking when he was a wee little lad, and his joys in life were few, innocent, a young boy's words of tongue with age venom would spew, bearing weapons against mankind, clad in armor men would pace, cold of heart when shed foreign blood, ignorant to obliterate for race, for love can never survive. The dark and murky waters of hate abandon the treacherous seas, or be in store for a life of heartache. Regretting things in the fall of life, men would later ponder idealisms with age, his mind reflecting in his season of fall, changing color, a leaf filled with sage.
Okay, so that's over with.
I'm gonna be cheeky, just get straight in. That's gorgeous. Oh my gosh, I might borrow that for a funeral. It's just like the sheer elegance of just watching time fall away, and just also picking the right voice for somebody doing your poetry is also a massive thing as well. And you found such a way for him to kind of use his natural vocal gravitas, but I imagine it sounds just as beautiful in your voice. So I'm not going to have that. You go, oh well, you know, it's better with him. He did a very good job of what the work was, but just in the midst of it, I think it's the line to do with as the young man starts to affect and change of time and watching the leaf change. It's just like, that's a really beautiful metaphor, and this is what I was saying. You're really good at that. I wish I had that talent. I get away with it for aggression. But like, you just have a beautiful way of matching your metaphors, and this was such a good example of your poetry and how you'll find the perfect matching metaphor to the line before, which is a skill of yours.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Rawle, are you going to say something because you look like, no?
No, I was good with what Genevieve just said.
You're speechless. Okay.
No, you don't always have to. Sometimes the art speaks for itself.
Thank you for that. Somebody says here, Angie's here, and she talks about your awesome job, Genevieve, and Pocahontas theme. And then Scott says, let's have Rawle sing.
Yeah, let's not. Believe it or not, I used to sing when I was a kid.
Did you now?
Yes, very much so. Now,
Brian, are you a singer? How about you, Rick?
No.
I sing anti-war tunes and Union songs, but that's pretty much it.
In the shower or out of the shower?
No. It rallies.
I'm a great singer. I'm a great singer in here, and I'm still that 12-year-old boy singing soprano in Miss Harrison's class and getting ready for grade 6 choir practice.
Wow.
So there's no way now I'm going to try to sing like a 12-year-old boy, because I think I think a few cats might decide to exit the planet. So.
Yeah. I had a couple of interviews a few years ago that in both the interviews they asked me to sing, and it's like, oh my God, because I cannot sing, and it was painful. And I'm sure after they heard me, they thought, oh gosh, wish we would have went there. So because it was really bad. I have no singing voice. So anybody else want to share anything else?
Yeah, I'll share a piece. This, to me, this piece kind of ties into the subject matter of why this panel, and what is the responsibility, if there's responsibility, of the poet to our community, to our society, in regards to what we put out or how we put it out. This is a piece called "The Poet's Glass House." The bias for balance is ignored, disregarding the light of truth. Insanity guides the moral narratives reinforced by repetitive stories. Hearts enslaved by the voices of fools divide and conquer their deadly kiss. Stones cast against the poet's house in this pursuit of life and liberty. Hypocrisy overshadows common sense with the pen and sword of deception. Propaganda, a wolf in sheep's clothing, and a minefield of twisted perceptions. Obscurity eats away at the soul that feeds the monsters of the victim's cry. Forgotten are the lessons of the broken heart, while hope remains a casualty of war. From ungrateful tears of privilege, the waters of decadence run amok. Shadows loom over the poet's glass house as respect and tolerance exits the senses. End of piece.
Well, as always, very, very deep, very eloquent, and you say so much in your own masterful way of delivery. So thank you for that. Love your stuff. Love your stuff. Brian's just dying for something to say, I'm sure. Look at these. There you go.
Absolutely. Brother Rawle is not a beginner. As I said before, it's intellectual pieces so that intellectuals can derive, dissect, and transmit, but also the common man can understand it very clearly, and that's a very unique gift. His poetry comes in at a certain level, but yet it is accessible to everyone.
Yeah, I agree with that. The beauty of simplicity, but sometimes in simplicity there's complexity, and the ability to take something and to really interpret. That's the nice thing about poetry, is that the receiver can take it and twist it into whatever they want as far as their interpretation. But you just Brian, look at Brian has some.
I was going to say, but sometimes poets carry it too far. They carry it too far out,
right?
That it's hard to digest. But he puts it in a way that the common man can dissect it, but it's also highly intellectual at the same time, and that's a very good gift. Yes.
Right. So when I say the beauty of simplicity, I'm not talking about really the simplicity of word selection or even content or even the complexity that dwells there within. I'm talking about the beauty in it that is accessible to everyone.
Exactly. That we all can relate to. Exactly. No, very well said. Mm-hmm.
There's times I send some of my poems to my son when I'm working on something, and he'll always say, Pops, I really like reading your poetry, but I got to read it. I got to read it like 3 or 4 times. It's too damn deep. So I don't know if he's really telling me he likes it, or it's his subtle way of saying, stop sending me poetry. So that's
No, don't stop. Keep it. Genevieve?
I've just straight out just DM'd in our group chat at the same time. I've just gone, send it me this, please. Because that was deep like an ocean, sir. And just as I was writing it, you came to your last line and then broke up the sentence to watch it disappear away. And I was like, oh, I pressed the button too soon. Apparently, I should have waited like a polite person. Yeah, I demand you send that to me. What a piece. And if you've got a video of it as well, I need to hear that again. Hey, as I said, like what's been great as I've come along and got to know you better all is that, like, actually seeing your technical specialities, and like your thing is that you're so good at sort of swooping in a line, and because you've sent me stuff before, I know that it is in the writing. It's not purely just a vocal performance; it's in the writing. The one kind of listens, hears a little bit, and there's such a feel of kind of gust of wind this time around. And then just as it veers off, a little added point. As I said, I pressed button too soon to be like, I've got to get you to send me this, please, please. And then literally you knocked me over like a breeze at the end. I was like, well, I should have stopped. Is one of my favourite things you've ever read. Oh, mate. That's all you've rendered me almost speechless.
Yeah, Rawle. I'm a big Rawle fan. So having said all that, and people wanting copies of stuff or whatever, I will share with you all later in our thread my email, so you can maybe share a piece for me to publish on popstarpoetry.com. That would be lovely if you would do that. So I'll share the details with you later, and hopefully people can find it again at popstarpoetry.com. You can look there and maybe they'll share their pieces. Rawle, did you have something else to say? Your mind, you see your wheels turning, buddy.
No, I just think, I'm liking, what we're doing here today. I'm not sure if we're fully diving into the topic, but then again, as a producer of the show, of shows, I also like the flow of things. And I think more than maybe, because I think sometimes when people talk about the debate, they always think it has to be this way. This is another form of debate where we're sharing our thoughts freely and openly. This is not a debate where we're trying to provide facts and data. I've gone off to done research to come back and position a point and pro or con versus a particular topic. I think more importantly, where we're demonstrating it, because for these pieces, like this last piece, it could be interpreted in many different ways, and sometimes the people that read it may get triggered. There's something in it. That's why I think a few minutes ago I said, if the poets have a responsibility, then what is the responsibility of the listener, of the reader? Because we are sharing not just our experiences, but a piece of ourselves from the inside. And if I have to be responsible to you in regards to what I say, will that limit it? But as a conscious human being, someone that I believes he's connected from the inside, I'm going to do my best to write in a way that does not offend. But I'm also going to write in a way that it's going to get the truth that I want out. And I think part of the responsibility of the listener is to accept that you might be offended. Because for a writer to truly write and to share, you have to take that risk that you might offend. But how you offend is different, because Brother Brian says sometimes poets, musicians, whoever, take it too far under the disguise, well, I'm free and I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
When I write, I tend to write thinking I am being true to myself. But I don't live on this planet by myself. I have to take in others into it to the best of my ability. And I like to think, Richard and I have talked about this. I believe in balance. I try very much not to get caught up in the minutiae of the hysteria, the craziness. And I just look at the systems that supposedly govern our lives and make it better. And if poetry is one of those systems, not if, it is one, because Richard touched on it. It's old. It's as old as us. It's how we started telling stories. Then we need to be true to that system. All of it, not just a part of it. So to me, that's the responsibility.
Yeah.
That's why I really like that piece, and I'm glad you really liked it. I will send it to you.
Last time I was critiqued about a video that I made because it was a little bit too Pollyanna. And the reason why I think that sometimes I write a little Pollyanna-ish is because when all Black Lives Matters was going on, I wrote a piece called All Lives Matter. And it was meant to be very, embracing us all with love. And I got all kinds of feedback from the Black community, and they were not nice. And I took it down, and I felt I didn't understand it. And what I didn't understand was that in saying so, I guess I was taking away from the issue at hand at the time. It was not meant at all to be, it was meant to be positive. And I didn't realize at the time there was this backlash about that, people saying that, because I don't listen to the news. So I didn't realize that was in the news and that was part of it. And then I was adding to that. So since then, I've become a little bit more Pollyannic as far as trying not to offend. And so you wonder why the peace, love, happiness, that's sometimes why Genevieve? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if you had your hand up.
I do, but I wanted to let you finish Annette, before I didn't want to jump in. Finish
No, I'm done. I'm done.
I actually, the only blood drawn from this cage match is actually Rawle. I disagree on one light thing. I think we've hit the focus very well. We could do a third if we so wish, but actually today's underlying theme is not just is responsibility and all the rest of it, but actually why it even matters to care. And what's fun is we've been able to argue both sides by being so nice and cordial to each other that there is responsibility. And actually, Annette just talking about it then, it's like you couldn't have known that there were a bunch. I mean, how would you have known? There were a bunch of people who were most definitely, shall we say, on the R word side of things, who were deliberately trying to drown out voices. How could you have possibly known? I would love to hear that piece. I'd love if you would send us that piece, because I bet you
I have it here if you want to hear it.
Let's get spicy.
Before you, because the feedback you may have gotten is under the auspice that there's one narrative, and that Black people all think the same way. Because I'm in the camp that you are. All lives do matter. I like to think I understand a bit of history. But regardless, kind of argue the point that I was making. You know your intent. Your intent is not to offend whatsoever.
Right.
And you put it out with that intent. And yet, a number of voices found it offensive. So I think there's times when people, again, what is the responsibility of the listener? When you hear something that you may not jive with, do you ever ask yourself, is there truth in what's being said? And if there's truth in what's being said, why am I getting triggered? And if there's no truth in what's being said, why am I getting triggered?
Yeah. Brian?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that chant, "All Lives Matter," was really not received by the African American community because it was perceived as a slight to our intelligence. Okay, because we know that all lives matter, and that's actually the point that we're saying Black Lives Matter, to let you know that we love ourselves and we're human beings. So yeah, there was no way for really you to know that, and people have taken that probably taken out of context, and we all know your heart, so we know that you didn't, but it's also what you're saying. It's also like about mistakes. Just today, I was at George Mason University, had a lovely poem to read, and it was 2 pages long. I forgot a page, so I read the piece at the 1 page, and then I ended with the intro. I got off stage after I did my set. Everybody loved that piece. and it was half the poem. So sometimes, we make mistakes. But sometimes those mistakes turn out to be blessings, in disguise. So it's okay to make mistakes sometimes. That was really my point.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I'm going to read this, and I haven't read this in years. It is in one of my books. I think it's in my first book. But all lives matter. Prejudices in a world of diversity should be eradicated right now. Look at the world through an untainted child's eye. Their view is innocent somehow. They are born without an opinion. They are not yet taught to hate. They know nothing of the difference in your skin color. They do not discriminate. When it comes to lives, all lives matter, whether you are black, brown, or white. None of us any lesser of value. None of us should be considered for greater. Stop the madness. Do not fight. Stop living in the past. It's all said and done. Unite in a world where there is conflict. Instead, look towards the future for a hatred and prejudice that we ultimately should omit. Perhaps our efforts should be instilling within our children the virtues of peace, love, and respect. All lives matter should be at the core of their upbringing. Teaching these values we should not neglect. We are all sisters and brothers and all reside in the same world and breathe the same air. So stop the discord, embrace each other, clasp hands, and stand united everywhere. End of piece.
It's an absolutely beautiful piece.
It's a beautiful piece. That's a beautiful piece.
I'm glad we got
a lot of negative feedback. So I'm just saying.
You won't get a negative feedback from this.
I was like shocked when it came out because I thought it was this really good message and this good thing. And so when the backlash started to happen and they were like, kind of, what the heck are you doing, Annette? I was dumbfounded because I'm just like, I'm trying to promote peace, and then all of a sudden I've got this unpeaceful, feedback coming. I didn't know what to do with it. So
it's the title. It's the title. That's all.
It's the title.
Poem.
Yeah.
The title. I should have changed the title.
Once you say that phrase,
and then that incites
who want to suppress. So yeah. But the poem is lovely, and I think this panel is lovely. We're a reflection of different points of views, different, upbringing, environments, and opinions, and yet we're here celebrating poetry. So I think that's the only thing that I might have questions. Just the title, but the rest is lovely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm going to jump on that for Brian, and I actually want to combine both Brian and Rawle's point of view of like this point. It probably was the title, and which is proof that we've got to be careful as well that our titles don't end up being hashtags by the reader, but also us having that responsible awareness. But the quintessential thing is, your point was that it all matters. The Black community's point was they hadn't. Names, people for decades lost and never gained, killed in prison services and stuff like that. So that's where the umbrage came from. However, that's not what the poem was about. The poem is that should be that every child, which does go all the way back to some very core social politics, should have that ability. And here is the encouragement. Female writer to female writer, different backlashes across my history. I will say this. My main sensei, my dear Mervyn, said no poem is completely finished. You can always revisit. You can write to it. Now, reading it again, I challenge you, dear sister, rewrite it, not change the title, or write to it since and what you've learned. Do you stand by your own statement? And also, is there anything new that you've learned along the way as a fight back to say, I have just as much right as anybody to state what I need to. If I can learn and add that to the next poem that I write or the next piece that I do, and bear in mind you're also a songwriter, fine. wasn't aware that doesn't change or challenge the scope of the poem. And actually, it proves that the fact that lines in themselves can cause so much pain because of that, it also means, are we losing intent for terminology? I will take in the learning. Thank you very much. I will study. Here's what I intended to do. This is where I've grown. But I'm not going to remove a poem from my Parthenon because that's part of my journey. And as Brian perfectly put, you got a poem that you've got two versions of your poem now, one with half of it and one with both of. That's the fun of what we do. We aren't novelists. Well, some of us might be, but novelists, we aren't stuck. We can keep working and changing as many times as we like. Only we know how it goes. And if you have people booing you in the audience, like, how do you know my poem better than I do? I might have changed it. So I hope that gives you a little bit of pride back. Reclaim your piece.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and to add to it, you have nothing to reclaim. You spoke from your heart. Isn't that what we said that the job of a poet is? To speak from your heart. It was put in a way that I didn't find offensive, but yet some might. And that's okay. Is it not? I would never ask another poet to go back and rewrite something because I didn't agree with it. And no one should ever do that to anyone. Period. That's the freedom that creative artists, actually, isn't that the freedom that humans desire? We have to get to a place where sticks and stones don't break my bones. Otherwise, we will never speak, and we will end up losing our ability to speak. If we are so afraid to be offended, and that's what it's gotten to today, then we're going to be always afraid to say anything, even the good and the beautiful.
Yeah.
So myself personally, I don't want to put that kind of restrictions on any poet, because I may not like, there's a number of things Richard has written that I don't agree with in premise, but I would never say, Brother Richard, you need to go back and rewrite that because it offends me.
Yeah.
I need to ask myself, why does it offend me? Is there truth in what he said? Is the truth what I'm having an issue with? So going to Brian's original thesis of all this from even last week, what stems inside? What stems inside that I am so offended by words that were not meant to offend?
Yeah.
And to me, that's the responsibility of the poet and the listener, because we're in this together. We're in this together. We write. It really doesn't matter until we share it. I mean, it matters to us, but to the collective, it doesn't matter until we share it, whether we put it out in print or we speak it.
Yeah.
If we really desire to be true humans, true free humans that want to move along together, we have to get to a place where we're not afraid to be offended and ask a fundamental question: is there truth in what's being said? Because if there's no truth in it, let it go.
I think sometimes we're a bit too sensitive in our society, that you go into things on the defense and looking for things that you want to find offensive. For instance, I once made a comment about a young Black poet and said that she was very intelligent and articulate. And I got a backlash from that that said, Annette, to say that about an African American is offensive because it's insinuating that normally they are not intelligent, articulate. And I cry bullshit on that. I'm sorry. I just do. I notice when anybody, I don't care what color you are, I notice when you are articulate and intelligent. So I found offense to that you would find offense, that I would assume that you are not articulate and intelligent based upon your race. That's not how I think. That's not how I think. It might be how someone else thinks, but it's not how I think. I look at somebody at face value. I don't care what color you are. I don't care where you come from. I look at you as a person and a human, and initially want to like everyone. Now, if they're really bad, then there's people. But I mean, I very willingly go into every person wanting to like them and expecting to find characteristics about them that I can appreciate. Any comments about that statement? Because I probably just made some people angry by what I just said.
I think that's a brilliant statement. I used to always tell my students, when Martin Luther King talked about character, he hopes that his daughters can grow up in a world where they're judged not by the pigmentation of their skin, but by their character. So what I always push to them, because I used to use poetry as a way for us to discuss social issues. So go, when are we going to do that? When are we going to live by character? I go, wait a minute. We actually are doing that. We do it every day, and every day we get better at doing it. I am not one of these people that believe America and these other countries are more racist than they were. To me, that's a lie. Does it exist? There's a lot of prejudice and discrimination in the world of all kinds. I don't know if we'll ever get rid of that because not all humans think the same way. I understand the past. I live in a colonizer country. I understand the history. I understand what happened before. And none of it can be undone. And yet everything that has happened before has me where I am today, sitting in my living room through technology, speaking with other human beings about the importance of poetry. Tell me how this is not good.
In a luxurious place that has a fireplace.
Yeah. And we're doing this while many others don't have the same luxury.
Yeah.
Life is a combination of the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful.
Genevieve is one.
Not just the good and the beautiful. But then again, too, that's the beauty of everyone having their own thoughts. Being able to share it this way, even if we don't agree, respectfully. Yes, sorry, Genevieve.
I think everything you've said perfect, and I wanted to add a nice point of clarity. Actually, when I said about the rewrite, what I meant more was just since the experience caused emotional feeling, right to how that made you feel is what I meant. In the sense that it feels like this poem has almost got a conversation, but after the conversation, don't touch the original. Original's perfect.
No, I actually got that from you. I got that. I should have.
Yeah. But it's a good point though, because unfortunately that does actually happen in the community. So I was like, actually, Rawle, good point. Let me jump on that anyway, because I've seen people write a piece, it goes into the magazine and they've added it, edited and changed it. Like, whoa. Did you want their work or didn't you? So actually, I'm just grateful you brought it up. So like, yeah, in this case, I'm leading exactly on what Merv says. It's like, right to it. If that's where you were there, what have you learned since? And have you got another piece that needs to expand from it is what I meant. So just as a point of clarification, but also like, I feel just excited because I can feel a little bit of fire going off your net. I've kind of been like, yeah, wait a minute, that wasn't fair. Yeah, man, you fight for you. We said this right up top. Good.
Well, I think whenever my intentions are misperceived, it irritates me a little bit. So if someone judges you and I feel like it's a misjudgment, and I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means, I'm just saying when my intent was the total opposite of what you're trying to accuse me of, then it makes me a little irritated,
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
This is a question actually for Brother Richard. Because you've been writing poetry a very long time and through many eras.
I'm going to get it right yet.
What's that? Sorry?
I'm going to get it right yet.
Why do you get it right all the time, brother? But have you sensed a difference of the poets from when you started to present day?
Now, I'm going to qualify this by saying I am dealing with poets at a higher sophistication today. You know, our colleagues in the Zoom circuits are global poets.
Okay.
We're accustomed to speaking to poets from many lands, from many cultures, with many variations. Where in my older days, when I was in my 20s, and so I was typically dealing with a smaller group, either a dedicated, should we say, political focus, anti-war, anti-racism, or should we say, pro-women.
Mm-hmm.
In that arena, acceptability was very high. However, when it became, small clusters of kind of art groups in a city, in a community, whether it was Miami or Fort Lauderdale or Hollywood or various places in Colorado, etc., their parochial interests and what I'm going to call traditional academic poetry was far more respected. And in fact, at one point I was told I don't believe in contests, but I had just won 3 contests in 3 weeks, right? And this guy pulls me aside and he goes, Richard, your work would be much more appreciated if you stopped rhyming. I mean, don't you know that rhyming is passé? And I said, brother, I understand. And I hear what you're saying, and I totally get that free verse and all that jazz is much more hip, is much more, I'm going to go ahead and say respected. But I'll tell you what, I answer to my muse only. I don't worry about critics. I don't worry about popularity. Frankly, if I write only for me and the muse, I'm good. But I am fortunate enough that I have found a community of people who seem to like some of what I write. I'm triply blessed. I'm just,
Yeah.
And I still write for the muse. I mean, when I get a line, God darn it, I respect that,
Yeah. I love that answer because you're right. We because of technology, we have this reach now, not just to build a platform, but to connect with poets. I mean, I connected with you because of the Zoom, and I'm really excited about Brian and I building a friendship of getting to know each other. I feel like I've identified a kindred spirit with him. It's the same thing within my poetry group and the people I've come in with. Without poetry, I would not have met Angie and Henry, which is unfortunate. Henry's having technical difficulties. I would have loved to hear his insights on all of this as well. So, yeah, that's why I asked that question, because I just, because the poets of the old days, when you read some of their poetry, they'd really offended, and they didn't seem to they kind of took off the kid gloves, at least the ones that I read. So that's why I wanted to, so that's really good, because the times have changed because of technology. So
let me just add one more little comment.
Mm-hmm.
When I would be in some library in some little town, even a college town, and I'd be doing the political poem or a science poem, people would look at me like, "You're not writing about a love poem. You're not you're not dealing with And I go, "It's okay. I'm totally fine with it. If you like it, that's fine. If you don't like it, that's fine. Not my problem,
Yeah. Beautiful. See, we did answer the thesis. No, we have been. We have been. Yeah, maybe I'm not speaking well, because I love the way actually we're addressing this debate, because we're infusing poetry, which we're going to because we're poets, with our thoughts on our life experiences and everything else. So yeah, this has been a really, man, we can't wait for part 3.
Brian, have you ever written anything controversial?
Yes. I was a young reporter, and I had was blessed enough to be a reporter and editor for a magazine based here and in Ghana, called Voice of United Africa. And I wrote a piece about religion and how I thought, or I would just say my views on Jesus Christ at the time. Little did I know that Africa was very, I didn't know that it was such a Christian country. So there was quite a bit of backlash that I received, from the editor. I was 18, but I don't regret that, because nobody disputed my facts. They just didn't like what I wrote. But truth is truth. So, but so yes, I have felt the backlash of that. But you move on, and it certainly wasn't meant to offend anyone. So yes, I haven't thought about that for 30, 40 years. So thank you for
I've written a couple recently about religion, and probably my sister thinks I'm going to burn in hell, I'm sure. So
Well.
I'll be right there with you.
and yeah.
It has to do with well, anyway, it doesn't matter. So it's nothing that you'd want to share. So in your whole poetry career, you've only written one controversial thing, Brian?
Yes. Because my mindset is not to make people not feel the evils in this world, but my concentration is for unity, to let spirits know that we come from the same source. And as Brother Rawle said, I don't mean to go into our personal conversations, but he said something about a meat suit, and basically this is what the body is, So once you're on that plane, I do not concern myself with matters of the flesh often. I'm on that spiritual plane for the most part. And all I said in the piece was that Jesus did not bring Christianity. He didn't know what that was. That was invented well after he had physically passed at that time.
Ew.
And that caused an uproar. And it's just fact, but this is not that type of show, so I'm not going to go into it any further. But being 18 years old and having to defend yourself was quite interesting. But I have respect for all religion and all people. Quite frankly, I have higher fish to fry. I have loftier goals on this. That's not my mission. My mission is to come here and do something else, not talk about it.
I think as far as religion is concerned, whether you believe, don't believe, whatever makes you happy and is in your happy place. I've often heard people that believe in God, or people who are weak that need something else. And if personally, if I have to go to that to get through a bad spot, I'm okay with that. Or if somebody else has to, or whatever anybody has to do to make themselves feel better. I just am very much into each man for himself. You find whatever is true, your truth, and go with it, because none of us really knows what happens, right? To be sure. But I will come back to haunt you all someday.
Well, know thyself, and at the end of the day, it's whatever you say.
Correct.
Whatever
Does anybody else have anything to share? We're going to be kind of wrapping it up. We're getting close to 2 hours, you beautiful people.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll share a spiritual piece.
Yay.
I read this when Brian and I were speaking Monday, I believe. I just feel the desire to read it today as we wrap up this show. It's called The Examination of This Privileged Life. Time does not examine time, for tomorrow matters only if today exists, and yesterday by design is left behind. With no remorse, time waits for no one in this continuum in the void of space. Out of the valley of green pastures, I ascend to the summit of memories, to pause for a moment, to take stock, as I take to heart Socrates' words, the examination of this privileged life. From the light, my shadows shy away as I rise in judgment of my worthiness. What has served? What have I learned? In this broken-hearted walk with suffering, free in the truth of my joys and sorrows. For all that I know is not all to know. I am a character in this repetitive dream, an illusion of will in the pursuit of truth. I was a lost sheep at the tip of my iceberg, found in the complexity that lies within. At this stage, time dances with my death. Gravity anchors my footsteps, mindful, open to the ignorance of my knowledge, the unknown of this unfolding journey, wisdom in the round of my soul's content. End of reading.
Going at it. My silent snaps are snapping for you.
Thank you, guys.
So that was deep as I think that you don't write anything that isn't deep and has some amount of depth to it. You're not going to write anything frivolous. Although I would like you to try sometime.
I've tried. I have tried. Like I said, my son goes, I love reading your stuff, Pops. But this is how it comes out, and I make no apologies for it, and at times I apologize for it.
No, we love Rawle. We're all good with it. It's just that you got to get your thinking cap on every time we listen to you, because there's depth to it. So it's kind of like
this is why I invite poets. Do not be afraid to recite your poetry numerous times.
Yeah,
even if it's frivolous, because
you will pick up something every time on that.
Exactly. So every time you hear a piece that you thought you've heard before, you're actually hearing it for the first time, because you're hearing it for the first time in this moment. That moment has gone. You're hearing it again in this moment. And in this moment, I am not the same as I was in that. So.
Anybody have anything to add?
Thank you, Annette.
Everybody unmute themselves. Everybody unmute themselves. And our last hurrah. So thank you again, all of you, for coming together and doing this. It's always a pleasure. Sorry, Henry had some difficulty, was unable to join us.
He was here in spirit.
I'm sure he was. But always a pleasure. Genevieve, thank you for, light and fire. Appreciate that. Anybody else want anything to say in closing?
I just want to say thank you, Annette, for
Absolutely.
for being open to a fellow member and a fellow poet like Genevieve with this idea and putting this together. And thank you for doing a masterful job of herding the cats. It can be easy herding us poets at times to keep us in an informative dance of sharing information. So kudos to you as the host and moderator. Thank you for
absolutely.
I appreciate that.
I agree. Yeah.
Appreciate that. And we'll think about doing it again sometime. I'll leave it up to y'all whether it be a part 3. It might not be right away, but
yeah, boy.
Everyone.
I haven't mastered this, so I just do the sign language of "I love you."
It's good. We like it. I think
I keep trying, but it just even my niece goes, no, don't do it.
My dad taught me this. Used to do this a lot.
Yeah.
He died very young, and this is the last thing I saw him do it as he's driving
beautiful
away.
Thing to see then is the last. I used to do this with my children. I used to give him the peace sign, the thumbs up, and then I love you.
Yeah. So this was the last night I had of my dad. So that was a great memory, right?
This was a delight.
It is, and I think we absolutely nailed in the second the point, the thesis, and everything else. So I think we are a beautiful panel as a combination, and Henry would have been the same. Yeah. I'm going to say, hey, you guys choose the next theme, because we're definitely doing this again. I don't know if we've got any more to say about it.
You guys want to have me back, or you want to have other people? I don't care, but I just hope you continue to do this.
Yeah. So someone else needs to come up with the next theme.
Yep.
And we have a thread, and you all can throw it out later. So, and we'll come up with a new theme.
And we can vibe off each other with the talk show, because some of the things I talk about, we can even dive in. It could be a synergy, because I just think we just need more things like this where we speak, where we do it collectively, and then maybe one-on-one with each other. But we just need to talk more, really, to talk but to listen, really listen, and not just with these, listen with this. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Indeed.
empathy, my friends. Love you all. Love you all.
Love you all.
Let's
Very
go.
good
Goodbye to
afternoon,
everyone.
humans.
Take care, y'all. Bye.
Peace.
All right.